just depends. It's like you asking me to name my favorite band. I really can't do it. It depends, like,
Yeah,
on what's
I hear you.
going on.
Right.
All right, all right. I would like to now talk to you about the movie business and what happened in the month of March. Not just Snow White, but
Mhm.
there were several other releases that they just had a very difficult month. Now, from what I've always known, movies that get released in March are the movies that they typically don't believe are going to succeed so much because otherwise they would
Mhm.
hold them up until maybe later in the spring. Is that the case?
Typically, somewhat. So it's typically between January and March. Is where we would say dump the movies. But there are at the same time there are certain genres, especially horror, that do well in those months. And so sometimes when you see a horror release in January or February, it's because they know that there's an audience that's clamoring to go because the Christmas holidays and all the big releases have been done, and they want some. There's a certain audience that wants grit. They want thrillers, stuff like that. So they know those will do well generally, historically. But for everything
Apparently,
else, yeah, it's kind of a dumping ground until you get to Memorial Day in May, and that's when the summer season officially kicks off, and you see huge releases starting to get released at that point. And even in the couple of weeks ahead, for some that don't want to compete directly with those releases, but they know people are clamoring for bigger stuff, and they're hoping that it'll give them legs because they'll have more time in the marketplace during big holiday weekends.
I've seen that The Simpsons, I have not seen it with my own eyes. I've heard they have put out a parody of Snow White, apparently.
Yeah, I heard about that. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah.
And the other,
Oh no,
big
I don't
bomb.
think it's The Simpsons. I think it's you're thinking of South Park, unless both of them are doing it,
Mm,
because I know South Park is
yeah,
working on that as well,
yeah. The
from what I've
Simpsons are
heard.
still around, correct?
Oh yeah, longest
Do
running
you-
sitcom in all history.
I admit I have never watched a full episode of The Simpsons.
Ah, you're missing out. My
I just
favorite
never,
period of The Simpsons
never
is they had
liked
this
it.
classic era where it was like from the third year in up until I don't know. They went for like a decade where it was just lights out, hilarious, and there was nothing else like it. And then they kind of repeat themselves, I think, a little bit
I
since
like
then, but
South
it's still
Park.
good.
I thought South Park was
Yeah, South Park was
fantastic.
great.
But do
Yeah.
you know, if we're going to talk about really silly, stupid things, there was a cartoon in the 1980s called Ren and Stimpy
Yeah.
that was fantastic.
Yeah.
It was lowbrow, but
Mm-hmm.
funny as hell.
Yeah.
All right. But what I
Yeah.
was
I
going to
remember
say
that.
about the movies was that Alto Knights, excuse me, came out about a month ago or so. Robert De Niro playing two different parts in the movie, two
Yeah.
different mafiosa. It
Mm-hmm.
was a Barry Levinson film, and
Mm-hmm.
this thing just died a quick and violent death in
And
the theaters, apparently.
all of us in Hollywood knew ahead that that was going to happen. The script for this project that you're talking about, it's been floating around for decades in Hollywood. With I can't remember if Barry Levinson was attached the entire time, but he became attached or interested early on when he was like 25 years ago when he was a really hot director and directing the Rain Mans and all these others. I mean, he's a great director, there's no
Diner.
doubt.
He did Diner, correct?
He did Diner, yeah.
But
Um,
why De Niro playing two parts in the same
yeah,
movie? That
yeah.
makes no sense.
It's an odd choice, yeah. Yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
But
you
anyway,
would think in
nobody
this
really thought that was going to open very well.
you would think in this day and age that the people would say, you know, the technology is good, but the crowd is not going to appreciate seeing the same person play two different characters.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't like Doctor Strangelove,
Right,
when you
right,
had Peter
right.
Sellers playing, the different characters, and that was fantastic because it
It
was a
works in
comedy.
it
It
works
was
in
a
humor. It
comedy.
works in comedy. Same thing with Austin Powers.
Hmm,
You had Mike Myers playing
correct.
two or three or four roles. So Warner Brothers has had a little bit of a run of bad luck. All the studios have.
Mhm.
Warner Brothers was trying to their credit to release a number of original content films. This movie that you're talking about with Robert De Niro in it has been kicking around for decades. Nobody's wanted to make it. Everybody's passed on it. Warner Brothers decided that they would. Apparently, the decision came from high up, and so there wasn't a whole lot of hope in
Mm.
Hollywood that this was going to make a whole lot of money. Now, the thing is that saved Warner Brothers temporarily from that being a major story is the fact that they've had a huge hit with Minecraft, which was fairly
Mm.
unexpected. They knew that
It's
it
done
would
well.
probably do okay. It's done exceedingly well. It's the hit of the year so far for any studio. And so that kind of helps erase a lot of
Yeah.
the unfortunate, decision
Has
making that's been going
Levinson
on over at Warner Brothers.
has Levinson ever done a mafia movie
Barry Levinson?
before?
That's a good question. I think so, but I can't remember any specific titles. Usually he does these thought provoking movies
Mm.
that are really well, really good character explorations. There's Good Morning Vietnam, Rain Man,
That
Diner.
was good movies. Good
Great
movies.
movies. Yeah. Anyway, he was attached to that movie quite a while ago, and so he remained on to make it. I don't think it was his fault, Barry Levinson's. I think that the reason that that script couldn't get made is because a whole lot of reasons that aren't named Barry Levinson.
You're talking about Alto Nights
Yeah, yeah,
and the delay in making it instead of
right,
making it 20 years ago or whatever.
right, exactly. Yeah.
Mm.
Yes, so Hollywood is hemorrhaging money at the moment, and not only a poor month of March, but a poor year so far, year over year to last year. And last year was a bad year. Um, Movie starts and production and TV production are all down in double digits. There's a lot of production flight that's going out of LA and into other countries, other states. That's been going on for a while, but it's become worse recently to the point where the California legislature is trying to rectify that, and it might be too little too late. Now, here's a new wrinkle that you don't know because it hasn't been announced yet. I know, so this has been threatened by the Chinese government, but they have not formally announced it publicly that I know of. I think had it been, we would have heard about it everywhere. However, as you know, I used to live there. I worked in media there, and when something is about to happen, they will warn you. They will text you in Chinese and say, "Don't do this now." And then you'll find out a week or two later why it is they said that, or maybe they don't
Mm.
even say it. I think there's a lot of negotiating happening behind the scenes. I know there is because I know people who are sort of flies on the wall for that. But I talk to people from China every day, especially in the media landscape. What they've been warned about this week is don't work with Americans. Don't work with Americans anymore. And what it looks like is going to happen is they have officially decided to disallow any American productions into the country and any co productions going on for the foreseeable future because of this tariff stuff.
How
So,
badly would that hurt American films over the
right.
next year, year and a half in terms of release and box office?
Well, it
Money
doesn't
made
help. It
in
doesn't help
China.
because
I didn't say it would help. I said ask how much would it hurt? Does it
Uh,
hurt a
so in
lot?
the last five
Badly?
years, since the pandemic, Hollywood has sort
Mm.
of stepped back from relying on China.
Okay.
China does use that as a bargaining chip for a lot of different things in the Hollywood economy. They only allow, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but they only allow 34 official foreign productions of any
Ooh,
kind
yeah,
to
I
be
saw
seen in
that.
an entire year in China. 34. And that includes
And
not only Hollywood, but France, England, you name it.
in
Now there
total,
are
in total,
total 34
wow.
outside productions. Now the way to get around that, and I made a career in part doing this, helping people do
Hmm.
this, is you could do co-productions that are sanctioned by the government,
Hmm.
or you could do as well. You could do productions that the government has. It's interesting. They don't do this so much now, but they would allot some of the main companies, and they're involved in all the companies because these are all entertainment companies. They would allot certain companies to be able to do one or two or three foreign co-productions, or even to import a smaller market movie into China because they could
Okay.
check off that slot. So there's that stuff. But in terms of
Question.
like the 34, those are the official studio films that they will allow in. And most of them tend to be the Marvel movies and things like that. So
So you
those
have
are now no more.
streaming services that are allowed in China that people can download a movie in their house. that's
They're
made
not
in the
allowed to.
States.
No, no, they're
So that
they're not allowed to without a VPN, and I've tried to do that with my VPN over there. It takes
oh, so
hours.
okay. All
Yeah.
right. So
So like Google isn't even allowed. Yeah.
if these 34 movies are not on the list, if the movie is not on the list, it's not even allowed to be streamed into the country?
No, it's not allowed to be streamed into the country, but that's not to say that people don't do it. People can get around this
Okay.
stuff, but they have to be able to afford to get around this stuff, meaning they have to
All right.
pay their VPN fees,
Yeah,
VPN
yeah,
fees. They
yeah.
have to like it's just this rigmarole. So they tend to, especially in the
Let's
recent years, they tend to only watch now, Chinese made films for the Chinese audience
mm. And it's a
more so
growing
than more
business.
so.
It's a growing industry in China. It's
It
a
is
homegrown business.
the hottest growing industry within that industry are these, and I used to help develop these at our company because they were just starting in the like 2018, 2019. And that is these little, we call them noodle shows, but they're called something else now. They're like micro episodes. So what you would do is you have somewhere between 60 and 90 or 120 minutes of content. Like picture one feature film, but it's scripted in a way that can be broken up into little segments, scene by scene segments of anywhere from 1 to 3 minutes, 5 minutes sometimes. And then you pay
Do
as you
they
go.
put this on TikTok in
Yeah, some of them
or
wind up on
some of
TikTok.
the
Yeah,
social
there's
media sites in China?
they have their own sites in China, that their own platforms that have these. It is now a multi-billion-dollar industry, and people, it's
And
just common. Everybody
okay.
watches these. Now it's starting to come over here. Um, Jeffrey
Wait, wait,
Katzenberg
wait, wait, wait,
famously
wait.
thought that it would earlier than this, and that's why he started
Mm,
Quibi, which is exactly to replicate all that. But it didn't work,
mm.
and they went out of business within a year. Now there's 6 or 7 platforms in the United States that are all doing very well with these same kinds of shows, and some of them are the exact Chinese shows that have just been translated into English and reshot here. I'm involved
Yeah.
in one of these. I'm helping a producer that's backed by a Chinese company to make one of
Question.
these things. I don't know if that's now suddenly
Are
shot.
there
We'll see.
Chinese stars now that are becoming internationally famous that I'm not aware of? People that are working in the so-called film industry in China that if they walk down the streets of South Korea or France or Germany, would they be recognized?
The first two they would be recognized. Those other ones, yeah, and anywhere in Asia or Southeast Asia, most of the Chinese stars would be recognized and mobbed. Even, I mean, they're just like everybody knows them. Korea, Japan, Vietnam. They all follow these major stars. In the West, however, they're less known. There's been attempts to make them. Their agencies sign some of these people.
Okay.
Um, some of the most gorgeous people on earth, and
Okay.
yet
So
they
now,
haven't been able to break out. Angela Baby's one. Um, there's several others, but the ones that
which,
remain famous are, of course, Jackie Chan and Michelle Yeoh. And
yeah,
technically, Michelle
okay.
Yeoh
Okay.
isn't from China, but
Right. Which is a bigger business, Bollywood or the Chinese film business right now?
Bollywood.
Still.
Yeah,
And it will remain that way, I'm guessing.
yeah.
Very much so.
Bollywood's evolving a little bit, where the audiences are starting to get some more mature content a little bit. In other words, there's other independent films in India that are doing well. I know some people that are producing some actually, but Bollywood remains king. There's more movies made in Bollywood style movies than any other um, cinematic landscape on Earth, any other territory on Earth, even Hollywood.